What's up, everybody? Welcome to Discourse and Chill. I'm Ian.
And I'm your girl Reese. Today's topic is on voter suppression. We will discuss the purpose of voter suppression, the types of voter suppression, and how to fight against voter suppression. Voter suppression can be defined as a strategy used to influence the outcome of an election by discouraging or preventing specific groups of people from voting. As of March 21st of this year, there have been 361 bills that restrict voting access introduced in 47 states.
Wow, that's crazy. The tactics of voter suppression range from minor changes that make voting less convenient to physical intimidating and even physically attacking prospective voters, which is illegal. Voter suppression can be effective if a significant number of voters are intimidated or disenfranchised. So, Tay, we just want to bring these things to the forefront because it is something that America is dealing with, and it's not something that is
Mm-hmm.
just a local problem. This is something that has been happening for all of time in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're well informed and know your rights. Um,
Yeah.
the purpose of voter suppression is to do exactly that, suppress the vote. The
Mm-hmm.
Republican Party specifically has been known to enact laws or rules that help suppress the vote of usually disenfranchised individuals, people in quote unquote inner cities, and they make it harder for them to turn out and vote. They make it less convenient, and these are things that they hope will impact the turnout of a particular election. And in doing this, they really, in my opinion, jeopardize the integrity of elections. And they always
Yeah.
claim that, having these stricter rules or more rules surrounding who can and cannot vote will help the integrity, but I really think it really affects the integrity because it is our right to vote. And so to do anything to stop that um, really jeopardizes integrity, in my opinion. Um, what have you, I guess, heard, or what is something that you've learned recently about voter suppression happening in the United States?
Well, mostly it's targeted against African Americans. People don't realize how strong our vote is
Mm-hmm.
as a people,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that our voice does still put fear into people.
Mm-hmm.
So they try different ways to actually, suppress it and keep us back. They feel like if we can inconvenience this group of people, not
Mm-hmm.
only African Americans, but most of the time it's targeted at us. If we can
Yeah.
just inconvenience this group of people, then maybe they won't come out and vote. And there is power in our numbers. We have proven that time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
So any way that they can stop our power, they are attempting to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the main way is those states that require IDs for voting. They want to limit the type of IDs that you can use. I fortunately am in a state of North Carolina where IDs are not required for voting in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is currently a trial going on to try to figure out, how that works, or changing that or making it a rule that, you have to have an ID
Mm-hmm.
present when voting. So just the fact that, they are trying to find means and measures to ensure that the voice of the people is silenced has been like, hmm, kind of eye opening, here in 2021,
Mm-hmm.
and being more involved community wise, political wise, and just knowing what's going on. Um, it's kind of hard to believe that here we are still in this day trying to fight for a voice that is rightfully ours,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it's very interesting or very telling about the type of people that we have in office who would even enact these laws. And I was having I guess, Instagram argument with somebody talking about how convenient or easy it is for them to get a driver's license. And I was thinking to myself, like, how misinformed do you have to be to believe that it's just so easy? I lived in California
Yeah.
for the last 10 months last year, and I went to the DMV in like a well-to-do area, and it was going to take like 5 to 6 hours to be in that DMV to get an
Wow.
ID, right? So like, you
Wow.
have to think about people's situation. Like I was fortunate enough to be in a situation at work and life wise where I could take that time and sit in line and do that. Like, what if you have to work? What if you got childcare issues?
Right.
Like, what if you don't have a vehicle? You know, like how think about
Right.
the length of time that some people have to stand in line
Mhm.
um, to to get an ID. Some people don't have
Yeah.
those days. You know, they have to take a day off, and maybe that's not something that's feasible. You know,
Right.
and I think about people like my little brother. Like my little brother doesn't have a driver's license, and he also doesn't have a
Mhm.
car, so therefore he can't get a
Mhm.
driver's license. And if a state ID is not accepted in his state, then how is he going to be able to
Right.
vote? And it's all
Right.
those little small tactics that for, I guess, people of privilege. I'm not even going to speak about like white people, black people too, people of privilege who just
Mhm.
don't understand the inconvenience of like having to take like I guess not having a vehicle to get a driver's license because you can't borrow a vehicle to get a
Mhm.
driver's license. I mean, you could rent a car, I guess, but it's just it's not as simple. You know, it's not as simple as people make it seem, and it may be great. Like your DMV may not be busy. Like I remember going to the DMV here in Tennessee to get my car registered, and it took me 30 minutes, and I was confused, and I was like, "This is not how
Wow.
DMVs work." Like,
Right.
I'm
Can y'all
I
reach
came
out to
in,
everybody else?
yeah. I came in, paid my money, waited a few minutes, got my tags, and was like out of there. And I was like, "Is there a line I'm supposed to wait in? Like, I feel like this is. Am I going to get punked? Am I
Right.
going to get pulled over because I got these fake tags that the
Right.
DMV gave me?" Um, and so I think I definitely believed this for a long time when I was younger. Is that everybody has a very similar opportunity to like get an
Mhm.
ID or a driver's license or whatever you need to vote, but it's not true. Like those things, there's
Right.
not uh, just universal access, you know. And so I think it's very
Right.
important to take in consideration before speaking about these things is that it's hard for a lot of people who live in rural areas or who live in inner cities where they don't have access to DMV or
Mhm.
they don't have a job in which they can take the strict time off because DMV ain't open on Saturday, you know.
Right,
hmm
right. You know, they have normal Monday through Friday business hours when most people are working. There aren't
hmm
any evening hours for
Yeah,
DMV, you know,
exactly.
so it does make it hard. I feel like people who don't know struggle or who are struggle adjacent tend to feel like they, oh, I don't know those things, or they don't have the
hmm
compassion for it. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
Like everybody who was well to do didn't get born into being well to do.
hmm
And sometimes when people elevate to another level, they forget about, the struggle and where they came from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say, oh, it's easy for anybody to get an ID or,
hmm
just go to DMV. But if my job isn't giving me time off, or if I can't afford to take the time off,
hmm
just something as simple as that. Like if I take this day off, that's money that I won't have to go towards a bill, my kids, whatever, whatever
hmm
responsibilities that I have. So I think it's really selfish in a way to say, oh, well, you can just go get an ID.
Yeah. Like
you
it's
know,
nothing.
I mean, if it was that simple,
Yeah.
then this wouldn't be an issue. Now, would it?
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting to me too that the Republican Party has primarily enacted these types of
Mhm.
restrictions. And when I say Republican
Yeah.
Party, I mean the current Republican Party. I'm unaware of any restrictions that the old Republican Party put into place because they did switch sides in a way. And it was very difficult. Well, I haven't found any. Like after research, I was unable to find any times where the Democrats had enacted voter suppression laws or legislation or anything. So it's interesting
Right.
that I guess, to win or to help their cause, they want to um, restrict voting for people, and even like language barriers, like making it more difficult for most, I guess, minorities, I would say, um, to
Mhm.
vote. And it's sad that that's the state of this country. Like there's division everywhere. It's not just
Mhm.
here or just in this place. It's everywhere. Like all the way down the line, there's
Right.
division even in our quote unquote birthrights. Like because voting is one of those things that
Mhm.
is supposed to be ours as a U.S.
Right.
citizen as soon as you
Yeah.
turn 18, right? It's 18, or am I?
Right.
Yeah, 18. As soon as you turn 18,
18.
it's your right. Um, I also know like my uncle who previously was he was arrested at one point in time, and he
Mm.
was told multiple like for years that he had a felony on his record and that he was
Wow.
unable to vote. And just in the last election, or I think maybe two elections ago, so it was either 2020 or 2016, that he learned that he does not have a felony on his record and that he has
Wow.
had the right to vote this entire time. But they had him on a list
Wow.
of like being like turned away from voting. So when he has tried to vote, he's been turned away on multiple occasions when he had the
Wow.
right to vote the entire time.
The whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like
Wow.
where, and even my dad and I were talking about it, and like where did they get this list from? You know, like how does the person at the poll have a
Right.
list with all these people that are not allowed to vote and why, and
Right.
basically no evidence of anything? Because when he finally looked it up, he didn't have a felony on his record, and he took his paperwork to the voting place and was able to vote finally after years of not being able to vote.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I'd call somebody. Somebody owe me some votes. Somebody owe me some back votes. Who do I call for my back votes? Can I apply these votes to prior previous upcoming elections?
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
whole mess. Somebody owe me some votes.
Yeah, I got 20 votes on it, so I need 20 votes on one right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Like, wait a minute now.
Hmm.
That's
Um,
crazy. To think that somebody could put together this list,
mhm.
falsely put together a list,
Yeah.
um and the fact that it went so long before he realized that he didn't have a felony, like
Hmm.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. It is. There are, yeah, it's just different types of like suppression, and we'll talk about a couple of them, like limiting types of IDs that can be used to vote. And again, like some states have it where you have to have like very specific types of IDs, and whether that be a passport or driver's license. I even saw one where you're allowed to bring your gun permit, which rarely has your picture on it, which is interesting. Um,
Right.
and but there was like restrictions on like no college or school IDs and no state issued IDs. Now, I was like, what kind of state do you have to live in to where the ID that was issued by the state ain't good enough to vote in the state? They
Right.
really want you
I
to have
mean,
a driver's license and not a state ID. So that was very interesting. Um, and then also limiting mail-in ballots. I think this was big in this
yeah.
past election. It was discussed
Hmm.
enough about mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
Did you mail-in ballot? Did you do a mail-in ballot?
No,
Okay.
I usually early vote. I like
Hmm.
to vote in person.
Okay.
I don't trust the whole mailing in system, just because there are times where, like, there was a case where they were throwing out the mail-in ballots, trying to suppress the vote and make them, oh, these we didn't have these ballots, these votes didn't come through or whatnot.
Hmm.
So I just want to make sure, let me be in person so I can know that I can say for a fact that I went and I voted and I like the sticker. um but the crazy part is, like, right now, some of the trials that deal with mail-in ballots are trying to get it that they have to be received by 5 p.m. the day prior to
Mm.
the election, whereas now it has to be postmarked by the day of election. So they're trying to make it
Hmm.
so that it has to be in before. So if I get to the post office that morning, the day before, but it takes 2 days to get there, you tell me that my vote doesn't count. That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It
So
doesn't.
yeah, so I personally like to be in person.
Hmm.
I don't like doing the whole mail in or absentee. If I can, I'm
Hmm.
trying to be there day of election. I
Yeah.
love early voting because that's where I take up. That's usually what I do. I usually early vote.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is the first. The last presidential election was the first election I did a mail-in ballot. Um, but
Hmm.
then I did it, and I had a very similar feeling as you. And so I took my
Yeah.
mail-in ballot to the polling station and dropped it off because you're allowed to do
Okay.
that as
And
well.
dropped it off.
Hmm. And so
Yeah.
I was like, should I put this in the mail? Like, I don't trust it. I'm just gonna take it over there, you know. And so that's
Right.
what I ended
Yeah.
up doing. But I usually early vote.
Yeah.
I know when I lived in North Carolina, there was a library
Mm-hmm.
in Hope Mills that I used to go to,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the first time I voted, and I stood in line for like hours.
Yeah.
And even to think about that, like it's not even a predominantly black neighborhood; it's a predominantly white neighborhood, and it's just there's only a minimal amount of polling stations in that area, and there are a lot of people who
Yeah.
live out there, and so I remember waiting in line for at least 2 or 3 hours
Yeah.
voting, and I know that like saying that I feel like some privilege, I guess, but because I know people in
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta and some other places who are staying in line for like 7, 8, 9 hours to vote. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember going out during doing early voting,
Mm-hmm.
and our friend Myra was in the line, and she's like, I'm out here, do whatever. So I called. I was just kind of kept taking inventory of where she was in the line,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, yeah, I'm almost to the door. So then I go and I meet her in the line. I'm like, thank you, how you been? I just jumped right in line. She said, girl, you are extra bold, like you are bold. I was like, listen, thank you for holding my spot. I'm about to vote with you. So I cut my wait time in half. Actually, I cut it in by more than half. I think I
Yeah.
might have been there 20 minutes. But she'd been in line for like maybe 2 hours,
Oh wow. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead on and vote. I can go ahead on and just find her and
Mm-hmm.
vote. I do like that you can do early vote on the weekends for those
Mm-hmm.
people who work during the week.
Yeah.
Election usually on Tuesday. Some people work on Tuesdays. So, the fact that you can actually vote on the weekends and you have a longer extended period of time
Mm-hmm.
to actually be able to get your vote in, and beat the hassle of trying to stand in long lines on actual election day,
Yeah.
I think is really smart. And they're trying to cut those times down, like the days allowed to early vote, to take it from like maybe 2 weeks to a week, or
Mm-hmm.
instead of being able to early vote until 6, close it off at 4, like silly stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
is ridiculous. Like, let these people vote.
Exactly. It's super petty in how they have
Yeah.
gone about doing it. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
I I definitely I don't understand any of it. I think there should be more opportunities to vote to allow as many people as
Mm-hmm.
possible who want to participate in the process. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
super important for there to be all options. Like you should be able to mail in your ballot, you should be able to go early, and you should be able to stay late or go late on day of elections. Like it should not just like,
Yeah.
oh, this polling place is going to close at 5. Like how sway like the time ain't going like by the time if I'm in Central Time, you know, and then LA is closing at 6, that means the vote is still going on at 8 o'clock Central Time. So I still should be able to vote despite,
Right.
it being past 5 o'clock. I
Right.
think one of the other big things is the reduction in polling places.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say this is one of the reasons that the census was stopped. I don't know for sure, but I'm just throwing this out here, an opinion of mine is that there was such a big stress or a big priority on the census prior to the election, and then all of a sudden it went away, and they just wanted to stop it as soon as possible. But polling places are distributed based on the census sometimes in some areas.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's an area
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of people and you don't get to everybody, and then they have a lower number, then there are going to be less polling places in that region or that county or that neighborhood. And so that's another way that they have limited or suppressed the vote, because then that makes it more difficult to go to a place that you're going to have to stand in line for 5 or 6 hours to vote.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think with limiting the places that you can actually go
Mm-hmm.
to vote, it's a coward move. Like,
Yeah.
are you not secure in your constituents? Like, do you not think that there's enough people that's gonna ride for you
Mm-hmm.
in the election? Like, why not make it so there's more places so that people can vote quicker, and you don't have to quote unquote be in long lines or holding up and waiting on these people to finish. Like,
Yeah.
like just go head on and let it be easy to access a place to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that the platform you stand on is strong and that people can trust your word. Now, if you, as Joe candidate, aren't reliable and you're trying to use these tactics to, like, sway the vote and make sure that people can't come and vote against you, that just shows that you're not running on a strong campaign.
Yeah.
Like, you might not be the candidate for the job, sir.
Yeah.
Or ma'am.
Exactly. And I think that's the most important part is that, like, if you're the type of person who is going to motivate people who oppose you to vote, maybe you should look in the mirror and not
Mhm.
find out, ways to stop them from voting. Maybe you should change
Right.
your ways and become a better human and a better candidate so the people on the other side aren't
Yeah.
like so divisive and so ready to get you out of office. And
Right.
I just think
Yeah.
it's a way to deflect. It's a way to say,
Hmm.
hey, I'm not sure I can win this next time, so I'm gonna sign this into law. That's how I view it, as a
Right.
coward move out. Um,
Yeah.
and so another thing that I witnessed, not in person but on the news, is intimidation or police presence at voting sites. Um, and I know sometimes people are going to say, well, if you didn't do anything illegal, you wouldn't be afraid of the police. If that were true, sir or ma'am, like,
Right.
I personally would not fear the police. But you know what? I don't trust them. And I haven't
Right.
done anything illegal. I just don't know what they're gonna do to
Right.
me. So I think
Right.
having that
Right.
high police presence in a place where, one, the police are not necessary or needed in those
Mhm.
moments,
Mhm.
um,
Right.
makes it intimidates people, especially I would say people of
Mhm.
color, because again, it's not what you have done; it's what they think you might have done in this day and
Right.
age. Um,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
I noticed some couple times on Instagram, I saw people taking pictures of people with like armed citizens at the polling places,
Mhm.
outside the polling places. Did you see
Yeah.
those?
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
did, which I think is really crazy. Like, first off, again, if your candidate is running on a good platform and has the trust of the people, then let the cards play out as they are supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But you sitting up here with this AR rifle, like, what exactly you plan on doing, sir? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna vote. You don't like my vote, you're gonna shoot me, okay? Or you're trying to shoot me before I go in to place my vote. Like,
Mm-hmm.
either way, you going to jail, stupid. Like, what
Yeah.
are you doing?
Well,
I
they're
just
not
don't.
going to
I just don't
jail though.
understand.
They're not going to jail because
You
they
say
have
what now?
like gun laws that allow them to be outside of those places with their guns.
No, I say if they shoot me
Oh
after
yeah,
if they shoot me for making a vote that they didn't like or
yeah.
try to shoot
Mm-hmm.
me before I go in and place my vote. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Either
absolutely.
way, you know what I'm saying, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
jail. But yeah, the fact that they can just be out here, again, these gun laws make it okay. I
Mm-hmm.
think is really crazy to me. Especially when some of the polling sites, I know here in the South, are in schools.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're telling me that it's okay for you to have this gun on a school property when we say that there are no guns allowed on school property, but
Yeah.
because it's quote unquote a polling site in that day, then that's your go around for having this gun out here at this school when there's been too many mass shootings in schools in the United States, period,
Mm-hmm.
anyway. But
Yeah.
Joe Smo can carry his gun for the right of his vote. Like,
Yeah.
get out of here. It's crazy.
And I'm always curious, like, where are the police in those instances? Like, where are the police to
Right.
like manage like this individual with a gun? Because that
Hmm.
seems more likely to, like, I don't know, be a crime at some point in time than
Be a
anything else.
problem.
Like it seems
Right.
like he may
Right.
break a law because he has a gun, and if he pulls the trigger, like, then what? Where were you? You're over here in my
Right.
neighborhood just standing out,
Right.
like, intimidating folks.
You got to make sure that I'm standing. You see, I got to stand in line, right? That's what it is. When
Yeah.
you stand in line, you have to stand at 60 degrees and not 61 degrees because
Yep.
then that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you can't vote because you're breaking the stand rule. You're
Mm.
not standing right. Get out the line.
Sir, you at the wrong degree, and I'm gonna need you to go home.
Right, like what? See, that's just how ridiculous that this is.
Yeah,
Obviously there
absolutely.
isn't a stand in line rule, but just the ridiculousness of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's crazy.
I think one of the most ridiculous ones is the exact signature match, which,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I have horrible handwriting, which I have admitted to on multiple
You
episodes,
do.
and my signature is like not consistent. Like it
Yeah.
depends on how I'm feeling that day. It's gonna depend on like how large it is, how long it is, like everything. It's just gonna depend on
Hmm.
what's going on, and
Yeah.
like I know that you can tell that I did it, but it may not look
Yeah.
exactly the same. That's that's all you're gonna get from me. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that looked like Ian did it, but it may not be the same name.
Right. And see with me, so I can sign my name with either my left hand or my right hand. I just can do my signature with both hands.
Hmm.
And you can tell a difference in the left versus the right. I
Hmm.
am right-handed.
Yeah.
But if I need to, I can sign my name with my left hand.
Hmm.
So, again, you can't tell me that it's not my signature when I did it with both the left or the right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Why do you sign your name with your left hand?
If I have something in my right hand, or if I'm like, if I'm holding something like, in my job, I
Okay.
come up, I have to sign overrides.
Hmm.
So like, if I have to run up real quick and I'm like holding on to like, something or trying to help a customer or just trying to go real quick,
Yeah.
usually the paper is on my left,
Yeah.
so I can just, sign my name real quick and then get back to what I was doing.
Okay.
Because I multitask, so
Man.
yeah,
Okay.
it's helpful in work and work situation.
I was just curious. I was just curious. That's all.
Yeah. I'm not just out here saying today I want to be left handed, today I want to be right handed. Like it's just the convenience of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So how are some ways that we can fight voter suppression?
The biggest thing is to definitely make sure that you know your rights,
Hmm.
know what rules are going on in your particular precinct or jurisdiction,
Hmm.
know what you can and cannot do. And just be very aware. I think knowledge is the best tool to help fight against suppression. Knowing what you can do, being able to cite what the law is really huge.
Hmm.
If you can tell me, if I can tell you that in this bill on this section with this code, whatever it is, you can't tell me that I'm wrong if I can tell you, if I can recite to you what the law is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you have to go out here and learn all these laws to be able to recite them verbatim,
Hmm.
but to be knowledgeable of what the law is, then that's the biggest thing to do. I
Yeah.
think it's the best one is just, to know your rights and have the knowledge of it.
I definitely agree. I think it's sad in those instances too that we have to know the law to exist, right? Like I know that it was super important for
Yeah.
me to know the law, to like know what I'm allowed to do and what police are not allowed to do when they pull me over
Right.
or when they approach me in a voting
Right.
line. Like that's something
Right.
that I should be able to trust the police to not like infringe
Hmm.
upon my rights in those instances. Like if I am not
Right.
a danger to others and I have not done anything illegal, I should not then have to
Hmm.
like prove my innocence to an individual in a moment by like knowing or being able to recite a a law or a
Right.
code to just nope, I'm allowed to do this based on such and such section of the state of Tennessee Constitution. I'm allowed to be here in this way.
Hmm.
Like if
Right.
you don't know that, it could just be a matter of like being intimidated or being
Yeah.
like inconvenienced in a way that you don't want to vote or you don't want to do the thing that you came to show up to do. Also super important.
Right.
Know your election dates and deadlines. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
some states require you to register like every year. In some states, you can register once and just are, as long as you're actively voting, you can continue to vote without registering. So just know your county, your state, your area, city, whatever. Know your deadlines, know your dates, know your registrations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also good to plan ahead.
Hmm.
Once you know the elections are coming and you figured out what the election dates are and you know your rights and you know what is required, make sure that you plan ahead for that.
Hmm.
If your state requires that you have an actual ID, be it state or driver's license, make sure that you are prepared. You already have it. If you have to go get it, give yourself time to make sure you have it in time
Hmm.
to vote. And also make sure that you know where your planning is for if you have to do a mail in ballot.
Yeah.
Again, there's some bills now that are trying to limit the time you have to put that ballot in. They're trying to get it so that it's the day before actual elections has to be
Hmm.
in hand versus post dated by
Hmm.
that particular day. So just plan ahead and make sure that you know what is going on and that you are prepared with whatever documentation is needed. It's a huge one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another good one is try to vote in a group. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
are going to be in line for a very long time, so it's good to have somebody there with you, even if it's just you and somebody else. Have support while you're in line, somebody to talk to. If it could be more people to vote, that's even better. Just to support
Hmm.
people through the process and to make it harder to be intimidated at polling stations. I have never
Right.
personally been intimidated at polling stations, but I know of people who have been. So this is a way
Mm.
to help combat that and to know again, the more you know and the more comfortable you make yourself in this situation is a way to help
Yeah.
fight the oppression or the voter suppression, I should say. So definitely
Yeah.
vote in a group to help combat like any type of intimidation and support while you're in line.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think also voting in groups would also help if it comes down to trying to figure out rides.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that there's people in your community that may have an issue with transportation,
Mm-hmm.
voting in a group, like if I can take the whole block with me, come on, block, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead on and make sure that listen, we're gonna vote on Saturday because it's early voting and
Mm-hmm.
we're all off, or it's just more convenient for us.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we get the plan together. It could be two or three cars that can take the whole neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, the church van, to take the whole neighborhood. Especially with those who are elderly or
Mm.
disabled,
Yeah.
come up with a ride plan. If you can go in a group that provides a ride for everyone
Mm-hmm.
that might be disabled or elderly. Make sure that there is a plan when coming down to being able to vote if you are in transportation needs, and going in groups I think will help with that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, uh, volunteer at a poll if you can. Like, if you have the time
Hmm.
and the availability, volunteer at a poll. You probably
Yeah.
will learn a lot more than you thought, and you'll be able to share that knowledge with your circle. And I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest part about voter suppression is the biggest way to
Hmm.
combat it is to learn as much as you can about your area, your precinct, your
Yeah.
jurisdiction, your city, your state. Is to know as much as possible because you don't want to go into voting situation and not know what you're able, capable, or supposed to do. So I think it's super important to learn as much as possible, and volunteering is a good way to ensure that your polling station can operate. One, and
Yeah.
also to help you
Hmm.
learn as much as possible in the situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good. Definitely volunteer. But don't forget to prepare for long lines.
Yeah.
If you know that you are diabetic, or that you may have some kind of issue that you might need to have a snack or something to drink while you wait in the lines, because sometimes lines tend to be long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially the day of. Those lines, could be anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But don't be discouraged by the long line.
Yeah.
Prepare for the long line. Bring
Exactly.
your snack. Make sure you have whatever water or medication that you need. Just, prepare to be in for the long haul,
Mm-hmm.
because in order to fight the suppression, we can't allow the intimidation of not only people but also long lines.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the strongest way to combat voter suppression is voting. And
Yes.
it's important to know who you are voting for and what they stand for, know their values, their platforms,
Mhm.
know just know them as much as you can. And so I think
Right.
I did something this year where we got the little pamphlet that you get in the mail
Mhm.
about all the candidates and all the measures and things that are happening and read all of them. We read the
Mhm.
pros, the cons, the good, the bad, everything. So we voted very informed. We vote. I don't vote party.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't call myself a Democrat
Yeah.
or a liberal. Like, I believe in America and I want what's best for America, And there's some instances where
Mm-hmm.
Republicans have really good ideas financially, and there's a lot of good social change on the Democratic side. And so there's a lot of times where I'll vote for a Republican bill, and there's times where I'll vote for a Democratic person, And so I just want what's best for like my city, my county, and my state and America. So voting is definitely something that I think is super important, especially at the local level when you get like mayors and city council people
Mm-hmm.
and representatives, because those are the people who you have the closest, I guess, you're the closest to. So you're going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
reach out
Closest
to them.
access.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
you have access. Thank you. So those are people
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be able to reach out to and pressure and um, make sure that they are making sure that your voice is heard. So please get out there
Yeah.
and vote.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with not saying like I'm Democratic. I'm only voting for Democratic
Mm-hmm.
uh candidates. I do identify as Democrat. So 9 times out of 10, I am going to vote Democrat. um, but I am informed about the Democrat that I am voting for, especially
Yeah.
when it comes down to the primaries where we're trying to figure out who we're going to, put against each other. I always tell black people, don't vote for black people just because they're black. Sometimes the white candidate might have the better plan
Mm-hmm.
for what your values are aligned,
Yeah.
are aligned with. So vote for the candidate that is right for you, not just because they're Democrat, not just because they're black, but because your values and their values are aligned, and
Mm-hmm.
what you want to see in your community is what they also want to see within your community. Just because Tyrone is running doesn't mean that Beth isn't the better candidate. Like you have to make sure that you know who your candidates are,
Mm-hmm.
and that again their values align with your values. Just because again it's a person of color. And I'm not knocking candidates of color. Listen, come on, my people, let's make change.
Yeah.
However, make sure that you're trying to make some legit change for the people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
that's super important. I think, and that's, yeah, I think it's just really important to make sure that the candidate you're voting for aligns with the values that you
hmm
have. And I think that's super important to me is the things that I want, the city that I'm in or the county that I'm in or the country that I'm in. I want all those things to align because I want what's best for
Yeah.
everyone. So if there's a candidate
Yeah.
who looks like me and talks like me, but ain't talking about everybody, then I can't align with that.
Mhm.
Like I want to make sure like
Right.
I'm all for uplifting black people and people of color and
Mhm.
minorities, all for it. But that doesn't mean I want to step on anybody. So I want to make sure that I'm
Right.
here for the greater good, not just for my personal gain.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's big, especially in your local elections, because
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, those are the people that you have the closest access to. It's easier to talk to a city councilman or a
Mm-hmm.
city councilwoman
Yeah.
as well as it is to talk to like maybe your local mayor or
Mm-hmm.
somebody, a county commissioner.
Yeah.
They're right here in your area, so those are the people that you need to make sure have the best interest for the community
Mm-hmm.
in hand, and know that you will reach out to them if they said that we're going to do ABC, but then once they get in elections, they're doing XYZ. Hold up, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is not why we put you in office, and know that you are being seen, and know that we will make change come the next election.
Yeah.
So make sure, again, that you are speaking to the candidates that you endorse, and that they are staying true to your word, and that they really earned your vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the voter suppression laws, the 361 bills that have,
that's
it's
crazy.
crazy to think about that. 361 bills have been um,
It's
basically written
crazy.
to restrict voting
Yeah,
access. And it's
yeah.
just crazy. And I think that's something you have to really think about and not from a perspective of Republican or Democrat. Like, if they're willing to do this for this group of people, when will the time
hmm
come that they'll do it for you too? You know, like
Right,
when will it come? Like
right.
I think that's how suppression starts. It's like, okay, we want to suppress this group, and then we're going to suppress this
Mm-hmm.
next group. But we have to get past this part first. So I think voter
Mm-hmm.
suppression is one of those things where um, it's a governmental control overreach. You know,
Yeah.
it's a place
Yeah.
where we're better than that, and we shouldn't operate as a country, as a state, as a county, as a city. We shouldn't operate in that guise if we're so gung ho about this democracy that we have. You know, if you're
Mm-hmm.
so hell bent on this democracy and it's so great and it makes America the greatest country in the world, why are you trying to restrict access to
Right.
it? Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where we just have to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of what's going on. Because when in doing research for this, to see that there were so many bills,
Yeah,
and in 47 of the 50 states, like
yeah,
everybody's trying to to
yeah.
to get their bill passed. Now,
Mm-hmm.
these are all bills that have been introduced. They have not gone through. They're still, going through the whole legislative process.
Mm-hmm.
But just to know that there are 361 bills in 47 states that are out there, that are being, looked at and discussed and possibly going to be enacted
Yeah.
is crazy
Mm-hmm.
to me. You know.
Yeah. And this is another place where some of these bills will be signed into law. Some of these bills will be voted upon based on the jurisdiction that the bill is in. And so this is a time where it's important for you to know like how
Mm-hmm.
laws are put into place in your area. You know, so if this is
Right.
something that can be enacted by a senator or a governor with certain legislative power, then that's something you got to know. And if it's something that you get to vote on,
Right.
again, it's something you have to know so you can make sure that you're present and you can exercise your right to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope this topic has opened some eyes,
Mm-hmm.
to our listeners, and has given them some perspective on what it is, when it comes time to go out and vote.
Mm-hmm.
Voter suppression is real, and trying to combat it is also real. You do have those people that are in political power that are fighting against the bills that are coming up. So it's not like, okay, these bills are in and nobody really cares.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that are still out there fighting for you to ensure that your vote is not suppressed.
Yeah.
So, do your research, figure out what's going on in your area, and just be more informed, and a part of the political process. Your voice, your vote matters.
Mm-hmm.
So use it, Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a great place to end this episode. We have definitely, we appreciate you sticking with us and allowing us to share some of these thoughts, feelings, ideas, research with you. And we can't wait to see you next time. Reese.
Yep. So don't forget, as always, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. Hit that notification bell so that you are aware, of our drops. And don't forget, you can listen to season 1 of Discourse and Chill wherever you listen to podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, and Castbox. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure you tune in there and subscribe there as well. We thank you and love you for your time as always, and we'll see you next episode.
See y'all later.
Bye.